Hi, I'm Matt from hockeyreviews.ca, and this is the true Catalyst PX3 blocker review. Now, I have the whole set of this, including the gloves and the pads I'll be reviewing as well. You've probably already seen the thigh rise test of the pads. If not, check it out in the description. One thing I want to make very clear before I do anything else on this is True sent me this entire set, full custom set, in order to do content on, to make a review on. So I have to say thank you very much to the person at True who made that possible. I want to just be really upfront about that when I'm doing the reviewing for the equipment and everything. Now, before we begin all that, Core Tech, which are core shorts, and people have heard of these before, they were labeled under Under Armour before. Now Bauer sells hockey specific one, but Core themselves sell their own line of pants and supportive clothing and apparel. Basically, this stuff helps you with growing strains, growing pulls, and helps keep your hips tight and everything like that. And speaking of injuries, I kind of pulled a growing playing in the playoffs a few months ago and have had to keep using these Core Tech shorts to make sure my growing doesn't get worse. When I don't wear them, I can feel it and it hurts kind of to walk the next day. With these, keeps everything nice and tight and keeps everything from stretching out too far and getting injured. So these have been a huge savior for me. Check out the link in the description to their website and use my coupon code that's in there to get a discount, and I'll put it on the screen here. It helps support myself and the channel so I can make content and doing real reviews, but also you get a solid product that I use all the time and basically am needed in order to keep my growing from falling apart. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel without buying anything, check out the links in the description to Patreon and buy me a coffee. Everything through those links always comes back into the channel so I can keep making more content and doing more reviews. So on to this blocker. It has been a while since I used an actual Lefevre built blocker. I've used CCM stuff in the past for like the eFlex 4, the Premier 2, and the Axis, and let's just be honest, those weren't Lefevre built blockers, which you can see obviously right here. And yes, they are very different, and just the build quality on them is different. The materials they use are different. This thing feels like a totally different glove, even though they were supposedly designed by Lefevre and everything on the old ones. So I want to say this is my first time since I think a RBK Premier, I think it was a Premier 2, it was RBK Premier 2 that I bought. For the wrong hand, it was a left-handed blocker, well, a full right blocker. I used the left blocker, my left hand when I'm like this, to do some things like 10 years ago. I actually liked the glove, but obviously it wasn't my normal hand, so I don't have it anymore and really didn't use it all that much. So this is my first time kind of diving into these, and everyone who's been on my channel should know how much I think blockers are actually very important, and I have some favorites in Bauer, so this has a lot to hold up to. So let's talk about the first thing, which is the most important thing on a piece of gear, and obviously that is a joke by now, but some people actually think that's serious, so I always have to add that as a caveat. The graphics on this I think are fantastic. Obviously this is not what I mean by the graphics on this are fantastic. I think they do a really good job of color zones, being able to do very interesting graphics on them, and I'm a big fan of them. I obviously picked every single blue possible, or colors that are kind of close to blue like purple and things like that, because I think honestly this looks fantastic and really interesting. It's also very uniquely me, but I really wanted to see these different blues on everything. So you have like the Seattle blue, the Washington blue, the aviator blue, and like this teal eggplant is on here somewhere. So I liked getting all those crazy colors on here, but I really do like this graphic. I like being able to like just have this section and stuff, which is very clean, or then you can have like stuff like this, right? If you just did that, which would look pretty interesting, where if you do just those and then all of this was a different color, it'd be kind of cool looking like a whole thing behind it. I liked this. I had a bunch of different graphics and designs that made up of normal colors that I enjoyed. Most of them were relatively simple, but I'm a pretty big fan of them, and I think they did a decent job here. Now on to the actual important stuff of this blocker. The shape of it does have this slight curve to it, but it's nothing crazy like some other companies. You can see this Bauer one, which has like a lot more pronounced curve up here and is much more rounded. This one is kind of more flat. Personal preference of mine, I like the more rounded ones, so this one isn't necessarily my ideal shape. I would prefer it to have a bit more of a jut out kind of design there. It's a personal preference thing. It doesn't make the world of a difference, and we'll talk about the performance of this a little bit later on that though. And you can see that these blockers have started to be thinned out a little bit on the Premier line. I don't have an old one to show you, but we'll look at this one, which was kind of an older design, and you can see like the thickness on how this one was compared to this one. This one is thinner out. The old CCM ones were thicker than this, so it is thinner in that sense. Going on to the sidewall, you do have this sidewall that honestly doesn't really feel like it's been changed for 10, maybe 15 years. It's obviously small differences, but this has been pretty traditional in terms of how Lefevre has built the actual sidewall on their blockers for a long time. Same with like the thumb. There might be some small changes here, but it is like a solid design and it's pretty stiff. It's not like a crazy Bauer stiff, but this is a good density of foam there, and it is decently stiff, and it's not like the Vons where you do that and it would really flex in as much. This is pretty good, and I don't think you're going to have a ton of issues with this blocking pucks from like not going in. It could be a bit stiffer and like hold out a little more, or if they padded this up more, it might add to that not bending a bit, but this is pretty good and I have zero complaints whatsoever in terms of this sidewall design. You can see the pucks off of it. I play a lot of sidewall hockey just with the way I try to deflect puck cross crease and stuff like that. So sidewalls do get hit on mine, and this has held up totally good. Never felt a shot through it, so it's been excellent in that regards. When we go on to the cuff, this is one of my favorite designs. I love this cuff. So I actually really do like the whole one piece cuff, how they have another piece up here, but I decided to open this up a little bit and go with the half piece, which is this, just because it is, I believe, the more new option, and I wanted the ability to kind of move this a little bit. I love this because, one, look how open it is just off the get-go, and like this flap being down here, like this cuff kind of pointing down here, really allows you to bend it a lot. So there's like zero resistance in this whatsoever, and this is on its more closed setting, which is something I also really like. There's two options here. One, you can do this, so it's extremely loose like this, but I don't do this because of that Velcro being exposed here, but they don't really have an option here because either it's exposed here on the inside, which will get your equipment more and like your jersey and stuff that's in there. So I'm happy that this is a soft one. That one's going to be exposed, but then you have this one, which can also open up like that. And then you have this massive opening, which has like, you can see how open it is, and it's ridiculous. Like, that is awesome. There's so much wrist movement there, and the adjustability here is so good in terms of really allowing you to open this up. And they did a fantastic thing here where the soft Velcro is, like I mentioned over here, the part that is going to be on the inside of your gear. So this exposed Velcro is also totally covered basically by this, unless you go to like even more of an extreme, but you don't really need to do that. Well, you don't need to do this anyways, but this is always covered. So that's awesome. I love that attention to detail. I love that decision on there. It was a very good one, and I'm a huge fan of this kind of cuff in general. Because this thumb design has been pretty like close to the same for years and years and years, you have this padded thumb right here with a nice soft piece right here. So it's a nice soft foam with a plastic thumb over here, and it doesn't flex a ton. It can if you go like this, but it doesn't really move a ton with your thumb, which is totally fine because this is a protective piece and you don't really need that to be bending like that or anything. But that is the design there. And they also have an extra padded piece right here, which I really like, because if this pressure goes in there, it has have that piece as well to act as a padded part right there from an impact right there. Great, great, fantastic design. I love this design. It doesn't really need to change. It works very well and it is solid. And I want to show off some pieces over here because you can kind of see some of the foams and just how this is constructed. So there's this Gen Pro line that goes down here, and it goes all the way right here to a Velcro. So if you unvelcro this, you can actually like kind of peel this part back a bit, and you can actually get to the sideboard foam. So replacing it isn't that awful, to be honest. Well, unless there's like something sewing in there, but I can feel the sideboard foam right there just by sticking my hand in there. So kind of cool in that sense. And then when we look on right here, you have a Velcro tab holding in the side wall foam. So this is the foam for this right here for that extra padding. So I really like that as well. Super easy to swap out if you want to, just with that little piece of Velcro. So I'm a huge fan of anything like that where you can just fix it yourself or upgrade it if after like 10 years it breaks down. You can just throw a new piece of foam in there, and as well as there. Another part over here that I want to call out is there is no added like durability piece on here. So there's no Gen Pro on this nylon. Now, I love that because I have to shave down and sand off my sticks all the time because there's too much grip and it gets stuck on Gen Pro all the time. This nylon does not have that extra Gen Pro wear piece on there. So I'm gonna wear a bit faster. Playing right now, I can poke check with this blocker better than like 90% of my blockers that all have that wear piece because it just doesn't get stuck on the grip. So I love that this is a thing, and I love that. So it's kind of a 50-50 thing. Do you want extra durability and having that all Gen Pro, or do you mind that the nylon is there so it slides better? So before we get to the inside and the palm, I do want to call out one other piece that I wish they did change, and this has been like on every single blocker I have reviewed, and I wish they reversed this Velcro piece. So they did a great job everywhere else where the Velcro is kind of like pushing away from your gear. And technically this is too, because it's pushing this way. But if they swapped this piece right here for the sticky side, when you tighten this, it would still be normal. And then when you wear it loose like this, like I do, because I like it nice and loose, the only part being exposed would be the soft piece right here, right? So this would be swapped. So this would be the sticky piece on here. That would be sticky. That is soft. Switch those around, and then that way you get the soft piece being exposed to the outside and the sticky piece here. And that way it won't stick on anything. The sticky Velcro isn't able to get stuck on any gear or any bag and stuff like that. So that's one of the changes I wish they would really do. Obviously this is kind of a nitpick, but I call it out on every blocker, so I have to call it out on this one too. And I really hope I see the industry go the other way and kind of swap that. That would be a great thing. And so going on to the inside of the glove and the palm materials, you have this just kind of soft nylon through here. It's nothing fancy, nothing crazy. It does its job. It's super comfortable in the sense that like I can't really feel it everywhere. You can kind of feel this, but honestly, when I'm wearing, like when I'm playing, I'm wearing long sleeves, so I can't feel that anyways. And your jersey and equipment's gonna get in there, so it's totally fine. The backhand is a nice gray Nash. This material is very nice. You can see the finger stalls kind of in there, hopefully. I can see it, so hopefully it's on the camera. But anyways, you can see the finger stalls in there too. All this material back here is really nice and it's nicely padded. Now, I did feel some shots through this blocker, but they weren't like painful or anything. I just noticed them, and I didn't think I would really notice them that much. That said, I noticed them a lot less on this than I did like my ultrasonic. So maybe this is a feel thing where they kind of want you to be able to feel where the puck hits the blocker more than just deadening everything. But I did notice that. If I had a personal preference on this and could like customize some pieces on it, I would order a little bit more thickness in here, 1.5 times as thick as this, or maybe even double. I would just prefer a little bit more padding, but that's personal preferencing and not a game breaker or anything like that. Also going on to the padding, you can see this is the backhand foam. I'm trying to get this on camera right back here. So you do have that pillow back there for the actual padding between the board and your hand, and that kind of sits back there. So that ends up being what is under this piece right here. You can see it right there. So I'd maybe prefer maybe a little more dense piece, maybe a more dense one, and then the soft one, or just a little bit taller of the soft one. Materials on the inside of the palm is this nice gray Nash, which you can feel right here, and it's nothing crazy, nothing super special. It's just a nice Nash. It feels good, and I don't have any issues whatsoever with it. Now, the awesome part of this, and I call this out all the time, is they still have their fantastic Suregrip material. You can see this textured material right here, and Suregrip has been on CCM gloves, Brian's gear, has been on Bauer gear at times, Vaughn gear, and right now, True is the only company that still has this awesome texture that I have found and can remember of. Everyone else has kind of gone to a worse texture material. You can really see the textured details in there. And when we look at like the Vaughn one, this is their new Suregrip where it's softer and nowhere near as textured, so you don't get as much grip out of it as you do on this stuff. So I'm a huge fan that True is still using this excellent textured and like really 3D textured material, and they use it all the way up the thumb and on the index finger as well for extra grip. This is an option. You can just get, I think, a tan Nash as well. This is like the gray Nash with Suregrip. I love Suregrip. I always get Suregrip whenever I can on my gloves. Mesh gussets here for breathability, kind of standard, and I like the flat thumb design here. It sits very well. You also have, which you can hopefully kind of see right here, you have a padded layer behind this. So you actually have, well, it's multiple layers because there's one overlay of Suregrip, then you have Suregrip, and then you have this little black layer, which is a padded foam. Now, lots of companies are doing padded materials under here, and that's no different with this one. You can see it kind of better right there. This blocker feels great to use in the hands. I like the padding just to kind of kill vibrations a bit. I know some people don't like that, and I know so there's some NHL goalies that use a single layer palm. I love this feel. It feels really good in my hands, and it's a bit more durable because you have all those extra layers there. So I'm a fan of that. More details on the fingers and everything. You have mesh gussets here, and you just have your standard gray Nash, and you do have padded fingers at the back to help with the finger protection on the clamshell right here. One of the things that is really nice about the True blockers is you can order different tightnesses on the back end as well as different palm sizes. So but basically that is for this and how close it will be, or how like tight this piece will be. So one of the parts I want to talk about these fingers as well is how they integrate into the finger protection, and these right here. So you can see they're attached right here and right here. So one thing that kind of does is it does kind of cause the fingers to kind of turn a bit, as you can see. It's not awful, but it still happens. and that one's totally fine because it's free. And this one, it kind of does as well. So you can see because it has the elastics here, when you go like this part kind of turns out and you get a bit of that gusset right there. And this one, it's kind of, you get more of the gusset here, but your fingers are going to be wrapped that way, so it's not as big as a deal. But this is something where I think you could either do two things to kind of change this, and this is also a very big nitpick, and it's not a massive deal, but it's something that I see a lot of, so I'm just going to kind of talk about it a little bit. You could put it on both sides so you have equal pressure kind of pulling it down. So if you put another piece of elastic right here, kind of connecting it up here, it's kind of annoying because it's not right on the side, but you could do like a piece of Gen Pro across and then down. And basically what that would do is instead of just having that forcing back, it will force that piece back too, and it will just lower it back at the same time. So you don't have that turn and twisting. Same with this, you could put it over there. What I have seen companies do, and Bauer does this, is where they attach it to actually the fingertips. So when you go like this, it pulls from the fingertips down, but that kind of leaves the fingertips trailing a bit, but it is another option there. And I might prefer to see that a bit different, like maybe having another elastic piece here so it comes down uniformly instead of just like right there. Again, a nitpick and not the biggest issue or deal. Vaughn deals with this by having no inner gussets on this finger and this finger, where this is totally closed off. So when you go like this, it doesn't matter because this is all just palm material all the way through, like you can see right here and right here. So that's an option of how to kind of handle that, but Vaughn doesn't really handle it on that one, as you can see the twisting done right there. So another thing I find really interesting is where this finger turns so much when you try to close it because of where this is sewn into. So you can see this Velcro right here is sewn into this piece. So when you kind of put the finger down, you can see all that twisting motion right there. Again, that's where you could put something over here so it would pull it uniformly down, but it's kind of weird. But with that said, the thing I noticed about this, and it's kind of negates my claim, is when you actually go like this, you're never actually closing that finger. At least you're not if you're holding it in the trigger motion like I am done right here. Now, if you hold it like this, you kind of will, as you can see it turning. And if you hold the trigger, like if you cut the triggers in here, maybe it will turn like that. But when I hold it fingers across the paddle like this, it works totally fine and it's not an issue whatsoever. And another thing I want to call out is I commented about this on the Vaughn glove where I couldn't really, like my fingers stuck out like this and I couldn't actually get my index finger across the paddle. This isn't actually my finger, as you can see. So my finger is actually totally just on the paddle and just folds up. So it's not like it's leaning over and I can actually get it on the angle I want here. It just looks more deceiving than what on that Vaughn glove will be. Then we go on to index finger protection. True does an excellent job here with this angled piece right here, and it is sewn in, well, it's tied in basically with this right here, which you can see on the inside here. So if you don't like this, you can take it out and it will be totally fine, but that is how it is. And I guess if you're really crazy, you could move it down and stuff, but I don't see why. But when you put this in right here, look how great that wrap is. You have an excellent finger like job right here where this part isn't really going to get hit that much, but that piece is really folding in really well and really doing a good job covering that. So pucks will hit that and you should be good. Plus you have that piece right there on the outside of the finger also protecting it, so you do have that 2 layers of protection right there. So I have a hard time seeing, especially like when you're actually holding this in the correct position, you're putting more force down here. I have a hard time feeling like that is going to really get through your fingers much. Now, maybe if they want to go crazy, they could kind of shape this a little bit more like this so you have triple, but that's asking a lot, and that is probably going to cause some issues with like mobility of the blocker on the stick and moving your wrist around. So this is a very solid design and I really like the design. Now, the one thing I'm going to say though, and this is one thing where losing that D30 thing that CCM has is kind of like they haven't replaced it, but I don't really think on the NHL gloves that were ever made by Lefevre really carried over. So D30 right here would definitely add to the index finger protection. It would add another level of like padding right here. So you'd have 1, 2, and then 3. In my eyes, isn't a bad thing. That material though definitely does stiffen up that index finger and it makes it heavier, and it just, you can't really close it as well because of that material there. So I get why they might not want to add something there, but I would love to see some foams added here just for a little bit extra protection. And again, I'm always for more protection, more protection. Some people think it's overkill. If it was an option, it would be really nice. I could see them not wanting to add another level of complexity to the palms and everything and doing another skew for that, but I would love to see some padding right there as well, just to bump up that padding and to make it even more padded in that sense. One of the parts that I find is kind of under talked about is index finger protection. And this is a case of where I really feel like True and Lefevre could upgrade this. Lefevre was one of the last companies to really go with index finger protection on their gloves when they were with CCM, and it didn't really cover that much. And this part actually came really late. This was curved, might have been a little bit more. It was just like this, but adding this piece kind of came after the fact and it was kind of late. And you can see how exposed your fingers still are. So I am kind of disappointed with what this is, and I wish they added more to it. Now, to bring up our competitors, we can see how Bauer has this massive piece right here that comes down and covers your index fingers pretty well. Now, this is a pretty thin piece. Bauer has gotten this a bit more dense foam on newer versions, so old glove. This foam is pretty dense, and as a shot from this to this one's gonna be more padded. And then as well, the back here is pretty padded as well, and this is kind of a hard, dense foam, so that's pretty decent there. But I would like to see this come down more, and you can do that by either having this slope, so this, and then kind of do another kind of bracket downwards, and that will help cover, kind of bring it more down, as well as just having this piece bigger. And connection point, you can put it right here so it pulls down more, because like this can cover here, but because it doesn't have elastic basically, or the piece, you don't really even need elastic. I think you could really just use a nylon piece or a Gen Pro piece going from here to here, pulling that down. It would definitely pull it down more, and you would get more index finger or fingertip protection like that. As well, this piece is pretty okay, to be honest, because it's doing basically what it is, right? You could go under here, but that's kind of crazy and overkill. And I think there's only like, this one doesn't really have it, but there's another one that has like 2 pieces on it. I think it was the ultrasonic, and this one is kind of fine in that sense, but I do wish this kind of came down a little bit more, and hope to see that in the future. That's a big thing of me. I'm always harping for more fingertip protection. If you hold your blocker against the post like this and someone comes and jams, these can get jammed on the post, which suck. It's happened to me before. Or when you're trying to cover a puck, it's like in a scramble and someone digs under from a paddle down, this also comes into play there and is helpful to really kind of come down and cover that. So I'd really like to see that change a little bit there. With that said, this design on here as is does not get in the way whatsoever with paddle down. So when you do that paddle down, there's always a gap, but it's so minimal. A puck isn't going under there, and it seals really well to the ice. But if you do that segment there, so it kind of is like this and then kind of comes more, you could bring that down so you'll still get that seal as well as the extra padding. So one thing I want to call out here is the quality of materials on the True gear. Gear made by Lefevre is unreal. And honestly, even the gear now designed by Lefevre, which is made overseas, they still use the same quality materials that I've seen so far. Like the Suregrip here was the same, as well as the Gen Pro is the same. So this is something I called out when CCM and Lefevre were no longer making gear together, is this Gen Pro material really was to show off the differences between this and the CCM material, where this was hard and it didn't fold. You can see how soft this is. There's no pressure there and it's folding, and it feels so nice. The quality of this material is, and like the Gen Pro they're using and everything, is so good. And the build quality on this is so good that it has to be stated how amazing it is. For hand position, it is definitely on the lower end of the scale on the market. And when I mean lower, I mean your hand is kind of lower on the board. They used to have options where, I think this one is actually called centered, but they used to have options, I think, where it was offset, where you could go a bit higher. But the only option for this glove, when I check the customizer, is on centered, but it really does feel like it's kind of lower and closer to what this is, the 1X, and it honestly feels pretty similar in terms of hand position on this. Further away from like the Supreme, where the Supreme, your hand's higher up, so you can get like lower shots easier with the blocker board, but the balance is a bit different. This one feels very balanced, but your fingers definitely are at the like close to the bottom board, and it comes up like higher up here than it would if you're obviously the board was kind of shifted down for those lower shots. And this is one of the most comfortable and like well-balanced feeling blockers I have. When pucks hit this, I feel like I know where puck's going. The blocker doesn't really turn that much on me, and it feels just solid all around. I really like it. Like I mentioned, I do kind of like the boards that have more of a slope here, but it's a personal preference thing. And this one has enough that pucks don't like roll up off it and stuff, and you can still direct things like this kind of down and away from danger if you want. Obviously you tip it up if you want to go over the glass, but this kind of pushes it out to the boards, and it does a really good job. So I did kind of notice that when kind of pucks hit there, and obviously because the whole balance and like everything, your hands kind of up here, anything that hits there is going to turn it a bit, but because just the board is a bit softer and you can kind of see like the little bit of flex there, it's not crazy soft and it doesn't really cause an issue, but it's just nowhere near as stiff as like some companies like Bauer's and stuff are. So just with that little bit of flexibility on it. I do notice those are a bit harder to control. Anything hit there on any blocker is going to kind of turn it. It's just the rebound, everything is a bit harder, I notice, to control than on some other companies. On to from balance to weight. I hate weighing stuff because I feel like people worry too much about numbers, and numbers really aren't important. It's balance and playability. And like I mentioned, this glove is so well balanced. It just feels amazing in the hand, and it feels super light. So even if this didn't weigh on the scale as the lightest blocker that I have, the balance on it feels fantastic, and it feels like it's one of the lightest blockers I have, if not the lightest blocker, and it just feels great on my hands, and playability, movability is phenomenal. Now, rebounds. I have to say this is one of the least rebounding blockers I've used and have. I would say it's kind of close to the Vaughn one I've used in the past. It doesn't kick rebounds out crazy like the Bowers do and other companies do with using composites in here, and it's a different idea really. Now, personal preference, obviously, if you like softer rebounding things, this might be good for you. I like the bigger rebound, so I would prefer this to have a bit more rebounding to it. I don't think they put the composite in here that they put in the thigh on the PX3 pads. I would be interested to see if they did put that through here to see what would happen in terms of rebounds. And maybe you don't replace the plastic, you put it on top of the plastic on here to really kick those out. But I think that would be an interesting test to see what happens with that. But with that said, the one thing about these gloves, and it's kind of something I always think about when specifically looking at Lefevre made gear, this stuff is made for pros. It works really well for hard shots when you're facing really hard shots. And I found while rebounds on the average shot, and again, my average shot is nowhere near the NHL average shot. So an average shot, the rebounds are pretty dead and they don't go out very far. But on absolute cannons, the rebounds still fly off this and go far. It's just not on every one they go far. So if they're designed for that case, the NHL shooter, you're going to get those crazy rebounds going out all over the place and as far as way as you want. But for me, when I'm like training with junior B players, it's not the case, right? Because they don't shoot like that. That's just the way it is. Personal preference, and I would prefer this to kick out rebounds a lot hotter than it does. And that kind of brings me to the conclusion of this blocker. It is very, very, very good. And I understand why True Gear, specifically made, like Lefevre made gear, is used so much in the pros. The balance on this is fantastic. The protection is very good. There's a few small things I would change that I kind of called out with like the fingertips, and I wish hotter rebounds, but it's not a big thing. There are a few things I wish they kind of would change with like that fingertips design, and I kind of wish hotter rebounds, but this is a fantastic blocker, and I would have zero reason to get away from this when using this set, and I have zero reason to not recommend it. If someone puts this on, they're going to feel the amazing balance on this. And then with that amazing balance comes the amazing quality on these things and the high level of materials on here, like the Gen Pros and just the Suregrip on here and everything, and how well that these are made. There is a lot to like with this piece of gear, and as well as the whole set, which we'll get to when we get to those reviews. Easy recommendation. I always want to tell people to try these on just to see how the balance is and to see how it plays. It's great, and I always love using it and getting it on the ice. So thank you very much for watching this video. Huge thank you to the people at True, I should say the person at True, who sent me this set and got me them so I could do a review on and make content on. I'm a huge fan of this gear, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity to do that. If you guys thought this video and these videos on the True set was helpful, please let True know on like social media, True Goalie or the True Hockey Instagram account, stuff like that. Let them know that these videos were extremely helpful, and happy that Hockey Reviews got to review them. And if you purchase a piece of their gear because of one of these videos, please let them know that as well. Just shows them that I am valuable for this. So I can't do all these tests unless I buy the gear, and this was a lucky chance where they sent this to me for free, so I have to call that out, as well as I'm extremely grateful for it, but that's not always a possibility. So thank you very much for watching. Remember to subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on Instagram, and links are in the description. If you want to buy any hockey equipment in Canada or US, check out the links in the description to Pure Hockey in the US and Hockey Supremacy in Canada. Clicking those links and making a purchase gives me a kickback for channel, so I can make more content and doing more reviews like this one. Otherwise, if you don't want to buy any hockey equipment but want to support the channel, check out Patreon, buy me a coffee. Everything that goes through those links always comes back into the channel, so I can make more content and doing more reviews. Thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.